This is the rest of the story about the half-A bounty hunter I purchased from Rudy Kluber. In the first episode, I showed how I had mounted an electric motor in an RC system so I could control the speed and do the DT. I mainly flew it from really small flying sites, and that worked fine. The bounty hunter I have is the 245 square inch version. You can see in the BMJR description that the original was built with a 416 square inch wingspan. Design was also changed to high thrust, although it's not an extreme high thrust. I also continued to work with the Cox TD engine, and I decided to buy a new cylinder and piston for one engine so that I would have like a new engine. The older engines I had were kind of hard to hand start at times, especially after they had warmed up. The compression seemed to go down. Working with the old engines and posting pictures and questions on the internet, I found out that most of the Venturis I had were drilled out, which would make them really hard to hand start, and they were. Somebody had told me you could use a number 32 drill bit to put through the Venturi, and it should just fit that, and that would be a standard Venturi. So in the new engine that I wanted to create, I found a Venturi that had not been drilled out, because I wanted to start at that level. So I created an engine that started pretty well and ran good on suction. Here again are the electric and electronic components I had in the bounty hunter to start with. I wanted to make one more electric flight on a big field to see what it would do and let it climb. This flight lasted just about 2 minutes. I felt now it was time to mount the glow engine. The engine that ran on suction pretty well on the bench didn't want to start too well or run too well on pressure in the airplane. When I finally did get it started and adjusted, it didn't pull the airplane very well, as you can see here. It turned out that the black 6.3 prop I had was just too much for this engine, at least at this level of break-in. I had my top banana with the medallion out one time, and I decided, well, I'll try the prop from that, which was a 6.2 APC prop. Well, now the engine was turning up much better on this propeller, and it was pulling better too. I read in an article that a TD takes about 30 minutes of running before it really starts to turn up. And I found the trim with the bounty hunter didn't really change much. The more RPM I had, I could just climb steeper, which is what I wanted. I also found that it seemed like the engine needed to warm up a little bit before you could get a really good needle valve setting. And sometimes it seems like it was missing. If you'd shake it a little bit, it'd start to run better, which I don't understand that one. Well, here I had mounted another camera off to the side so you get a little different view. Sometimes my throws weren't too good, but it always recovered. This is the last flight I made, and I launched it vertical. It held that pretty well, although it might not quite look that way in the video as it's a fisheye lens. This is what I've been working towards. I know people have always told me it had to go more vertical, and I finally got there, and it seemed to transition just fine, and I'm really happy. The wind was really light at this particular flight, and it stayed right overhead. Of course, not easy to see when it goes by the sun. The DT must have been set fairly short and it DT'd way up, and it took it quite a while to come down, even though I think I have about 60 degrees of upward throw on the stabilizer. I feel really lucky to be able to use this field, and this tall grass is really easy on the models, but finding them is really a chore if you don't have some kind of tracker. I came down about 50 feet away from me. Here you see me walking through that tall grass using GPS, which directed me right to the plane. Well, thanks for watching these videos.